The competitive map pool has changed over time as much as it hasn't. Yes, that sounds contradictory, but let me explain. Box in Europe, box in the jungle, vertical in Germany, vertical on a power plant. And although that sounds dismissive in a way, my implication isn't that Counter-Strike has never innovated in its formula, it's more about specifically what we play on. A majority have been relatively the same for more than 20 years, while other games have expanded beyond. This isn't anything new, and I'm certain this is the billionth time somebody is pointing it out, but let's seriously ask why that has barely changed. I have thought about it, and answering this question is way more complicated than we might think, so strap in for some yapping. But first, if you want a great place to buy and sell skins, choose Snowland, who are now the official partner of Team Vitality, one of the biggest CS2 teams. Despite Valve's new trade protection, where accepted trades can be cancelled within 7 days, Snowland has instant payouts. To sell, just set your trade link, use promo code DEZOLANCE, which will get you $10 for free when selling $100. Then select the skins, choose from a multitude of payment options, and once trade is complete, you will receive your funds instantly. If you choose to get paid in Snowland balance, you can use it to buy skins instantly, which is just as simple with a massive selection to choose from for prices lower than Steam. Check the link below and start trading today! For the original CS, once the best maps were figured out and refined down to 4, everyone stuck to them, with hardly anything else ever making an impact. CS Source was fairly the same, but since the advent of CSGO with a map pool that can be updated periodically, we have seen some successes and some failures. Even taking into account the loads of community maps that have been in the game, either through events or temporary inclusions, almost none are remembered. On one hand, yes, many players simply find Mirage and Dust too easy and stick to them like friggin' flies on a glue trap. Trying and getting used to something new can be difficult, which is understandable, but it's not like the community level designers don't know what people want. Okay, then how do you get everyone to recognize what can work? Of course, not every map needs to be competitively viable. That would ruin the purpose of the art. Many fan-made maps we've seen haven't exactly been the most serious. Sometimes it's about tinkering with a formula or gimmick for nothing more than entertainment. Those that maybe have tried to be serious didn't manage to captivate enough, perhaps because we weren't forced to try them. And this is the other side of the coin. Remember those CPL maps from back in the day? CPL Fire, Mill, and CPL Strike? Nothing amazing in retrospect, but some matches were played on them due to their inclusion in Cyber Athlete Professional League's tournaments, which led to them being liked so much, remakes were created that further refined their ideas. So we got Mirage and Tuscan. One became a staple, and the other is, well, pending so far. Oh, sorry, Fire. It was never meant to be. A similar strategy was applied by Valve. Make canals, shove it in with the rest, and see how it goes. Interesting and experimental in its design, but led to perhaps unintuitive gameplay, and despite attempts to fix, it didn't work, so it disappeared. How about Ancient? Also came out of nowhere. It wasn't received that well in the beginning, but there was promise, so after some polish, it thrived, and now we have a staple. Does the little toddler eat nothing but dino nuggets? Remove them and serve only vegetables. Kid will either learn to like them or starve to death. Either way, you learn something. Let's discuss another complex matter. If we know what a good map design is, how can we create a new one that isn't a copy of the old? Any map can be like a Dust, but does it have to play like a Dust? Some basic design principles do apply, of course, but you need to differentiate. Having outstanding angles and layout quirks is cool and gives character, but can also make it more confusing and less interesting as a result. Okay, now what if you stand out too much? I think that's possible, so really, it's a matter of balance. I've noticed some maps, despite being incredible, suffer from having too much detail, which cripples both visibility and FPS. Not to mention the amount of contrasting colors can lead to certain areas creating too much noise. And I'm not saying this as a try-hard comp sweatbag, it's just that these things can hamper the experience. It does go back to a previous issue where in order to learn what to do, you need player feedback, which might not come easy. Anubis is a workshop map that won a contest not too long ago. Eventually, Valve bought the rights and made it official. Similar to before, reception was mixed, so after some refining, we have yet another staple. And what does today's Anubis do so well it deserves that spot? Simple, dusty visuals that, while making it less aesthetically remarkable, benefits a lot in the visibility department. I personally really like the gameplay of Anubis. The layout is small and simple, so you can definitely learn the whole thing in one single match. There is nuance and depth, but simplicity attracts like-minded simpletons, I guess. Does that mean we need more grandiose contests with a financial incentive to find Dust 3 or Mirage 2? Well, there haven't been enough of those to concretely define if it's a solution, although on one hand, it does incentivize map makers instead of preying on their map being chosen for the next rotation that happens like 2 times a year. Should Valve also try to produce more originals of their own? Definitely. Canals might not have worked, but both Ancient and Overpass are still here. That's a 66% success rate, right? Also, we can ask if the game really needs anything. Yeah, it may be important to have something new from time to time in order to keep it fresh and interesting, but considering the community's reactions and how hard it is to put out a new viable map due to the fickle gameplay, is it really worth it? From a casual perspective, if the game hypothetically had 20 different bomb defusal and hostage mode maps to choose from, would anybody even play them? In theory, it sounds awesome to have choice, but taking on such an endeavor to maintain so many, even if they are community maps so Valve doesn't have to do a thing, really isn't worth it because there will be very few players queuing for them. Back in CSGO, there were tons of maps that were barely played. Even today, the few new community maps that get added quickly devolve into high queue times, and when you finally get a match, the skill level of the lobby is all over the place. Valve knows that, and it's why we don't get more of them, despite the workshop being full of great candidates. I don't mean to digress, but just as an example, TF2 has a brick ton of maps to choose from across all game modes. This is a more casual multiplayer FPS, so diversity should be a great thing. Yet, in my personal experience, if the only choices to play on were Upward, Harvest, Two Fort, and Badlands, I think the player base wouldn't be too bothered. On the other side of the coin, it might make it more difficult to adjust from a competitive side. Sure, the active duty pool is 7 maps, but having just as many, if not more, in reserve that can become part of that important pool, how is the scene going to adapt to so many? An exaggerated hypothetical, yes, but just know how difficult it is to get even them to actively play anything new. So things shouldn't change because we don't want them to change, but then it becomes stale and we want change, so it happens? Then we proceed to complain about change and disregard it. I know the CS community is not a hive mind and you can't please everyone, but as with anything in life, the balance is somewhere. I understand the frustration that Valve greatly decentivizes casual play because you get way more out of playing comp, or by not having enough casual content, or by the server browser being broken and not very prominently featured. However, this is a different can of worms for another time, but simultaneously, even in the old days of CS 1.6/source dedicated servers, the majority were, and still are, running the same few maps, or Dust 2 only. I guess if there's any takeaway from this, be brave and try something new. Don't like it? Give feedback on why. Don't like anything new and prefer sticking to the same old? Don't complain about things being stale. At the end of the day, change starts with you. Can Valve step in and make more impactful changes that really shake things up? As always, the answer is yes, but Valve is a hardware manufacturing company, so please understand where their priorities are. My priorities, however, involve fixing a crooked drill bit on the wall, so I'll be off on my own adventures. I don't understand, why does it always end up being crooked like that? Maybe I'm bad with my